Look, I want to get stuck straight in. I have about maybe 15, 20 minutes of content here, and then hopefully some time for a Q&A at the end. So we'll get straight to it. So I'm going to cover lean and AI in Kukoon and just explain our journey and where we're at up to now, and share some of maybe the mistakes we've made, and hopefully provide a little bit of learning for everyone here. I'm going to start off, give you a bit of background on the company, give you a bit of background on our lean journey up to now, and then what we're doing with AI over the past 2 years, and then finish with hopefully a very short takeaway summary, and then some Q&A. So the company began back in 2006. That's me actually looking a little bit older than I'd like. For 20 years ago, I was helping my dad at his market stall selling rugs. And me and my sister went on a how to sell on eBay course over in London. And when we came home, we realized there was maybe an opportunity to sell our dad's rugs online. And the business kind of kicked off from there. Fast forward to 2010, and about 10 people in the business at that stage. We were a very old-fashioned business. We were early adopters to online sales, but in business terms, we were really, really old-fashioned. Our solution to most problems was to work harder and sometimes shout louder. So you can probably identify with some of those foibles. Moving on to 2018 then, so we visited Seating Matters in May 2018. We'd done our first morning meeting in June 2018 and launched Lean from there. And for anyone who's been through that journey, they'll know that first year is a barrage of excitement and energy, and also a lot of issues. We were trying to change our own culture and mindset to business, and also trying to change the team's culture that we had set and built in the business. So a very exciting year, but a very, very tough year as well. So moving on to 2025 then, a team of about 65 people, about 2/3 of the team are based in the office. 90% of sales are still online, but we have two retail stores of our own, and we're stocked in about 45 retailers around Ireland as well. So that's a very brief background of the business then. On to our lean journey. So as I said, we're 7 years in at the moment, and it's interesting, Tom touched on the next point. We're down to one morning meeting a week, and it's not enough. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but our morning meeting is pretty much exactly as Tom said. It's very focused on culture. It's very focused on maintaining and creating the vivid vision for the business, so that everyone in the company knows the direction of travel and knows what each department is doing to get there. But yeah, there's a couple of bits missing. We do the value shout-outs, we do our lean shout-outs, we do a lot of the really good simple stuff, but it's all culture and energy based. And we have 3S time for ops only. So about 1/3 of the business is operations based, and everyone in that team has their own dedicated 3S time. Within that then, by request or based on projects, there's specific improvement time allocated person by person. That is not the same in the office. The office works a little bit differently. Across the business, but probably more so in the office, our improvements are really driven by Kaizens. And Kaizens for us are 1 hour sprints. So we take 1 hour where we look at the process, usually for 15 minutes, discuss the process straight after, come up with an action plan for the improvements we think we can make, and then we come back again 2 weeks later and do the exact same process again, having made those improvements in between. So the Kaizens for us, they can be anything from 2 or 3 rounds, taking maybe 6 weeks, to I think our record longest one was 22 Kaizens that took nearly a year. So there's a lot of flexibility in that, and it drives a lot of the improvement within improvement time. We then do lean tours to build knowledge, so I think everyone here is probably fully bought into that, but we found phenomenal engagement and energy from swapping our tour guides and our tour stops very regularly. There's no better way to learn something than to teach someone else. Selfishly for us, tours are brilliant. We love having people in, and hopefully people that visit us get benefit, but we get so much benefit from having people come and visit us, so they're a huge part of our lean development. And the last piece of note, particularly for today's discussion, is we have a 3-person business improvement team. All 3 people are office-based. All 3 people are data analysts or some version of a data analyst. So they don't do physical improvements. They only do office-based improvements. And these 3 people have no frontline work at all. Their only role is to make every other department in the business more efficient. So I want to touch on what we can do better. When I was preparing this presentation, I realized that probably over the last 7 years, myself and a number of other people in the lean community here have been kind of fighting the fight for lean and trying to talk to other businesses about what all the good things about lean are. But if we're in this room here, probably everyone's already bought into that and engaged, and it's maybe good to share some of the things we're struggling with. So first up, as I touched on, we need another morning meeting added back in, and we're going to do that in January, and that's really to share lean knowledge. We went down to one morning meeting a week about 18 months ago, and I thought in particular that between osmosis, Kaizens, and spot knowledge, we would be able to keep evolving the new people that joined the business with their lean knowledge. That hasn't happened. The gap between those that have started recently and the more experienced members of the team has got bigger and bigger, and we really need to solve that. So there'll be one morning meeting added back in now in January. We also need to focus on waste much better. Linked to the point above, what we've found is that when people haven't got that lean knowledge, when they can't identify waste really well, they fall back into papering over cracks. And that's a huge issue for us. It's a huge issue for any business. We've had a really good trading year. Things have gone well. But with being busier, more volume is passing through all our processes, and we're starting to see those cracks cause issues. And I think the concern for me is that some of the teams involved and some of the people involved aren't even able to identify that waste because we haven't supplied the knowledge. And for a company that's 7 years into lean, that's pretty embarrassing to admit. We also need to formulate our Kaizen structure. So our Kaizens are really beneficial and huge value add, but we don't have any particular targets around them. So starting in January, we're going to have specific Kaizen targets for every department every month, just to make sure it's a fundamental part of the business. Last point for me then is probably a bit of recognition for myself. I'm involved in a lot of Kaizens and involved in a lot of improvements, but actually recently haven't been posting as many improvements on our lean group, and that's a huge gap because whenever I go out and start to talk to people about lean, I realise that some people who don't know me well within the business don't know how important it is to me because I just haven't been posting as regularly as I should be. So all of that stuff above is great, but as Tom Hughes always says, improvement starts with I, and I have to focus better on that. So that's lean within Kukoon. Talking about AI within Kukoon, then I want to tackle why, what, and how. I think the why is fairly easy for everyone, and we're in the boat, as I think all of us are. We're in competitive capitalist markets here, and AI is available to everybody, and you really fall into two buckets, in my view, within our industry. You're either adopting it and you're pushing ahead and you're starting to gain the advantages, or you're not and you're falling behind. So I think AI is pretty much essential at this stage. I'll dig in then to the what and the how. So the what in AI for us falls into three key buckets. The first one is the one we probably all know best, is the general use of AI. So that's research, analysis, ideation, kind of using it as a consultant. So that's probably what 75% of our AI is focused around. The next bit is a much more specialist piece. This is scripts and coding, and that we use AI to create scripts for Python, Google Apps Scripts, PowerShell, and this is really our three-person BI team dive into this, so I'll get into a wee bit more of that. And then the last point is probably the most difficult topic of all. It's integrated AI. So we have fully integrated, sort of wrote a couple of big checks for AI around our web search and also around our customer service. This is the topic that's maybe most interesting or most talked about in public markets, but for me, there's very much this area hasn't developed, in my view, as much as it could possibly for the level of checks that are being written. So it's a tough topic. I know there's a couple of AI specialists in the room, and they're hopefully going to interrogate me after about my opinions on this, but I'll share those now in a minute. So when it comes to research analysis, ideation, strategy, options, and high-quality imagery, we use ChatGPT and Sora for imagery. We've done a lot of detailed comparison on ChatGPT and Gemini, and we really wanted Gemini to win because we're a Google-based business. We use Google Calendar, Google Email, all of that. Gemini at the time, which is about just over a year ago, wasn't just as strong as ChatGPT, so we had to go fully in ChatGPT. ChatGPT does now have connectors for all of the Google platforms, so it is fully integrated, but my hope is that Gemini improves and gets better and better because having a completely native platform is always a little bit stronger. Our journey with ChatGPT then and using AI generally, the first thing we done for the business was we provided expert training. So we brought an AI expert in to provide a day and a half of training for the 35 people in the team that we thought most likely to use it on a regular basis. We then provided a 1-month test license for ChatGPT for all 35 people. That 1-month test license was, I think it's called GPT Enterprise, maybe it's about $30 a month, and it just provides a lot more flexibility for what you can personalize within GPT and what you can save and what projects you can build. The other massive thing is that, and this may be fairly common knowledge at this stage, but if you're behind a paywall in GPT, all of that data is fully GDPR protected. If you're on the outside of the paywall, the data can be used for training and analysis, and we have seen some data breaches on that side. So for the sake of $30 a month on a purely GDPR point of view, it's quite useful. we then encouraged use at every opportunity. So we did at the start and still do now, although it's pretty embedded at this stage, but we actively ask members of the team, are they using AI when they're preparing work or they're preparing documentation? And most especially if we've found shortcoming in the work or we found issues or gaps with the options provided or the quality or volume of work provided, we've actively said, have you leveraged AI as much as you possibly should or could within this process? So we're definitely not at a case where we want people to do the work and we don't want AI to do the work. It's the complete opposite. We want people to use AI as much as possible, and we really preach that message on a regular basis. The other piece that we found really important was we provided a lot of space to test and learn. So in the early months of using AI, there's a lot of trying to supply it with your knowledge and supply it with feedback on what you want it to do. Like one of the big things that our expert trainer said was you have to treat your GPT as if it's a really keen intern and it's there to learn and wants to do well, but you have to feed back what it's doing right and what it's doing wrong. And that is what we found and what works really well, but it probably does slow down your pace of work in the early months, so you need to be prepared for that. And the last and really important point is we underline massively that responsibility for results is 100% still with the person. So whether you use ChatGPT for 5% or 95% of the work, saying that ChatGPT prepared that is pretty much the worst of the excuses for poor work that we would ever accept. So while the first four are all about encouragement, the last one is all about understanding that full responsibility still lies with the person. The other piece that we had to tackle, which I think has been mentioned already over the last 24 hours here, is that fear that AI is taking away jobs. And I think we haven't felt a lot of that internally, and there's been a lot of positive engagement around it, but we still wanted to tackle it head on, and we had a reasonably simple, possibly stark message for everyone, but we tried to deliver it as positively as possible. And what we said everyone internally is that AI definitely will not replace your role, but someone embracing AI in your role might. So it sounds a little bit stark, and that is pretty much the headline of how we deliver it. But what we're trying to encourage people to do is to say, look, AI is not really optional for the company, and that means it's probably not optional for you. If you can't embrace it and get on board, and somebody else does, then that gap could start to look quite big. So a couple of little bits I just wanted to share. Just probably the most interesting or the starter points for the expert training for us was to personalize ChatGPT. So hopefully a lot of you have done this already, but you can go in and personalize ChatGPT. You can tell it how you want it to search and how you want it to speak. So for how you want it to search, I tell it to only use reputable sources, only use high quality data, cross-reference and multiple data points, always provide the sources when you're giving me answers. And if you're taking a guess, tell me you're taking a guess. So it gives a lot more clarity and cuts down on a lot of the hallucination issues that are associated with GPT. I also tell it an awful lot about myself. So I tell it a lot about what I do in business and what I do personally and what I'm interested in and how I like to tackle issues and what kind of problem solving I like. So it then knows to replicate that in its answers. The other thing that we were encouraged to do and I found very beneficial was ChatGPT has so many, as all AI measurements do now, has so many data points that if it stays as a generalist, sometimes it struggles to get down into the detail. So I've created a number of specialists. So I have a legal expert, a finance expert, HR, marketing, that kind of thing, a lean expert, app scripts. I even have a couple of personal ones around personal training and nutrition and around travel. And probably those last two are the most interesting ones because what I found for me personally and for a lot of people in the company, it was what got people really, really comfortable with using the specialists in ChatGPT and supplying a lot of knowledge. So for the travel one, for example, I would be explaining the kind of holidays we want to go on, the fact that we've maybe got a young family, we can only travel at certain times a year, we want this kind of temperature, this short of flight. And then my travel expert can start to supply information and data. And the nice thing about that is you probably have a really good conceptual idea of what good answers look like in your personal life. And you can start to compare where ChatGPT is doing well and start to provide guidance and feedback for it on the kind of answers you want. So we found that really interesting at the start. And then as you start to develop the work experts, you're better at handling them as well. So on to the coding scripts option. This is probably a more specialist part of what we do within AI in the business, and it's very much leans on our 3-person BI team. This is the biggest value-added piece we have within AI utilization in the business, but it does take dedicated people, and that's been our experience. It doesn't take experts. You don't have to have coders or programmers, definitely not, but you do have to have someone with the interest and the time to be able to spend a lot of time in these areas. Again, we use ChatGPT for almost everything. Its coding skills have gone exponentially better over the last 12 months. What it's able to do now and what it's able to help you do now is incredible, especially with regards to making you a better prompter and making you a far better learner in the process. So the step-by-step for us was, we took quite a bit of time at the start to understand what each of these scripting options offered us. So Google Apps Scripts, for example, totally native to our Google platform, so works really well in anything we want to do in there, whether it's Google Sheets, sending automated emails. PowerShell then does a similar thing for your Microsoft platform. Python then does some more technical and complicated, sort of bigger data and more complex processes. And Power Automate then is the really simple tool that kind of pulls all this together. So Power Automate is almost usable by probably everyone in this room after an hour or two of training on day one, and it's really a plug and play. You can go into it and say, send an email, and you can drag and drop where you want the email to come from and what you want it to do. And we combine Power Automate with the other scripts, so we maybe say to Power Automate, go to this channel, pull down this data file, then go and look for this Google Apps script we've written to manipulate the data into the form we need it, and then go back to Power Automate, and Power Automate sends that data file to wherever we need it to. So that's how all those come together. It does take a bit of specialization to make them work. And what our BI team have done is become really prompting pros. And as I touched on already, ChatGPT has become phenomenal at teaching you how to be a better prompter. So the important thing with ChatGPT is to provide a feedback loop. So if it gives you an answer and the answer is not right, you need to try and tell it why it's not right. What ChatGPT has become really strong at is telling you what a better prompt looks like. And you should, as part of your personalization in ChatGPT, encourage it to do this to always help you to become a better prompter. So next stage for us then was create subject matter experts. So within our BI team, we have one person that really focuses on Google Apps Scripts. We have another person that's a specialist in Python and so on. And what this does is obviously create that level of expertise where something that can be a complex topic becomes owned by one person, and that one person can deliver it to a high level. And again, we give time to learn and test. I'm going to show a graph in a moment here, but this area, that is even more applicable because the learning curve is much, much bigger. The final piece then was to focus on maximum returns. So what we found was quite easy to do within this area was to focus on easy wins and low-hanging fruit, and that's a nice way to learn, and it was a brilliant part of the learning process. But once we got a good standard of coding available within the business, we really had to look around at the entire business and see where maximized returns is. And to the annoyance of almost everyone in operations and finance and customer service and every other department, commercial is where it's at for us, because increasing sales or margin by 2, 3, 4% is the biggest lever we can move across the board. So in very simple terms, our BI team spends 70% of their time supporting the commercial team. That's a personal decision for us as a business. It's what works best for us, and that's how we can best justify the investment in that team. The summary for this category for me is a lean phrase that I absolutely love, and it's slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It's a really slow start in this category, and it's a really difficult thing. You don't see a lot of gains for a long time, but once you get up and going, the results are phenomenal. And here's an updated graph that I shared at the Lean Cluster back in the summer. But the red line is hours inputted by our BI team purely on Power Automate. So that's monthly hours inputted by that team. The blue line is the monthly hours saving by Power Automate processes, and that's over the last 11 months. The last month is an assumption of where we're going. But what you can see is investment up front is very high for practically no results, but that learning curve is positively steep in that once you know how to use Power Automate, it takes less than an hour to write the vast majority of Power Automates that we use. And as you can see, coming up to month 12 here, we're heading for close to 150 hours a month of savings for less than a 30-hour or less than a 40-hour input of time. The really nice thing about this is the red line will drop down a little bit more and then level off because there is a requirement for maintenance. There's no doubt about that. But that blue line exponentially grows. So with each Power Automate we add, that number grows and grows and becomes more efficient. The blue line makes no allowance at all for improvement, reduction in defects, for improvement in customer service by being able to do things much more often and much more accurately. That is purely in time saving. It also doesn't include the fact that for a lot of these tasks, there may be 5-10-minute tasks that people throughout the business have to do. They have to stop something else, go and do this task, and go back and start the new task. We haven't allowed anything for the up and down time. Internally, anecdotally, we multiply this by 3 as the genuine value for what Power Automate does. So On to the last topic then, which is fully blown integration. So we use Algolia for our web search. It's quite a specialist tool, and unless you're doing a lot of D2C commerce, it maybe isn't all that interesting, but it's 25,000 a year, so it is, and so it's quite a big check for us to have signed up to. Digital Genius, we're just about to sign up to for our customer service team, and it's about 35,000 a year. They're both big checks. They're both big checks within the AI category for us, and we spent a long, long time looking around and making that decision based upon that. So the step-by-step for us was to cast the net very wide. We probably spoke to close to 20 businesses looking at both of these options. And we spoke to, I would say nearly 20 in the initial inquiries, and got down to really detailed inquiries with more than half a dozen. So we then went into very detailed research and testimonials. We spoke to current customers. We got testimonials for how it works. We've seen it in a live environment and seen how much it would compare and be usable for us. They are big checks to write. AI is moving at such a rate that the big factor for us was we were looking for a return on investment in less than 2 years, not just of the upfront cost, but of our investment time. The big reason for this is, in my view, the technology is moving so fast that what was top of the options last year, maybe second, third, fourth, fifth this year, and you need to create that flexibility and that optionality that you've got your return in year one, and you can continue to develop it with something else in year two. If I'm back speaking at this next year, it's 50-50 whether we'll be with either of these companies, and I think there's every possibility that as ChatGPT creates better and better API connections, the likes of Digital Genius, which in my view is a really useful, really good AI platform, but its single biggest value is that it provides really good integrations. The actual AI behind it isn't any smarter than anything you can pick up in ChatGPT for $30 a month. So as ChatGPT improves, it's probably going to be the go-to option for us. So my thought on this is proceed with extreme caution. We're in it and doing this because we feel we have to. We feel we have to be at the front of the learning curve, and we have to invest and try and find out what's available in the market. There's a lot of AI companies out there spending billions and trillions of dollars on huge amounts of AI. The CFOs within these businesses want to find ways to get money in. So in my personal opinion, there's a lot of snake oil being sold within the category. And many of the companies we looked at from multiple options within AI within our business had nothing more than a good connector and ChatGPT plugged into the background, and they're charging tens of thousands for it. So that's my slightly gloomy summary on that one. So overall, for me, AI is use ChatGPT at every single opportunity. Use it to ask every question you can. Use it for every bit of analysis, comparison. Use it for the things you absolutely think you couldn't use it for, and see what happens and go through that learning process. Take 10 hours to understand what scripts, coding, and automation can do for your business. I think for me, this is the biggest opportunity for probably everyone here, even if you're a business that has 80% of your team in manufacturing. For almost everybody else, they're just moving data and information around the business, and automating that will make it more accurate, more efficient, more scalable, and provide better customer service as well. And then when it comes to writing big ticket checks for AI, definitely proceed with a lot of caution. There's not much really, really good out there that ChatGPT can't do with a good connection. So thanks very much.